Sunday's end comes with a whimper. And if you listen close, you can hear those Buffalo Bills. Off and running. Derrick Henry collecting the longest rushing touchdown in Ravens franchise history. This en route to 199 yards on the ground. That's fifth most in a game by a Raven. And, well, when you got two guys back there that can tote the rock, everybody's eating. Lamar Jackson running one in to put this one out of reach, 35-10. It's the Ravens in commanding fashion over the Buffalo Bills. Look at your box score. There is your final score. Josh Allen just 16-29, a $180. The offense never finding its flow, never getting into rhythm. Thanks in part to a bruising defensive attack once again, and that rushing duo of Henry and Jackson. A $199 on the ground for Henry as a team, well north of 200 yards. These Ravens, they figured out how to use King Henry. Joe Musso in studio alongside Ryan Wilson. Ryan, this was more the Ravens we expected to show up week one. It took them a few weeks, but the rushing attack now in full lather. What did you make of the means by which they beat the Bills in this game? Because this was decisive from the jump.
So here's what the Ravens were absolutely fantastic at coming into this season, or coming into this game through 3 weeks. Rushing versus stacked boxes. Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, that makes sense. They're number one. And the Bills' defense was middle of the pack. And design runs. Lamar Jackson gets involved in there, too. Bills struggled against that. Again, the Ravens were number one. So we saw that early, and we saw it often. And what we didn't see was the fourth quarter implosion that has become a hallmark of this Raiders team in recent years. And not only did they show up in the second half, they extended the first half lead, which also has to make John Harbaugh, the head coach, feel good. But I think it wasn't complicated. We ran the ball in our offensive line, which has struggled over the first 3 weeks. Looked pretty good. Starting right tackle Roger Rosengarten, the rookie, played pretty well. And they had some new faces in there, but again, if you can't stop the run, and by the way, Derrick Henry's 30 and weighs 250 pounds and no one can catch him. I mean, he's not even human. But again, if this is what the future is going to look like for the rest of the season with the Ravens, you have to feel pretty good about where they are. Yeah. I know you had some concerns in terms of January football, but we got 3 months, so let's enjoy what we got here tonight.
Certainly that question will not be answered until we get past the holidays, but it's a gift to open on this night for Ravens fans, as they certainly have an offense that has a clear identity, and that is beginning in the run. Now, it was an identity they tried to forge in those early weeks, week 1, week 2, trying to get Derrick Henry going, and it wasn't the success that we've seen over these last 2 weeks. Back-to-back 150-plus yard performances on the ground by Henry. Where are you seeing schematically the change? I mean, there was a lot of gun run early on in that week 1 where they were trying to figure out how to use him. How are they using Derrick Henry differently?
I think the biggest concern was probably figuring out the offensive line and how to get everyone on the same page when you're battling the injuries. The right side of the offensive line had been inconsistent, and I mentioned Roger Rosengarten getting that start tonight, and the offensive line looked like a cohesive unit, like they've been playing together for 10 years, and I think that simplifies a lot of things, because we know Derrick Henry, in terms of breaking tackles and making defenders pay at the point of attack, is one of the best in the league, even at age 30. But if he doesn't get a chance to get his legs going, Joe, that's where he struggles to get yards. And if he gets a head start, ahead of steam, that's a wrap. We saw the safety have to leave with a concussion, I think, midway early in that game, and that's because he tried to take on the two knees of Derrick Henry without much success, and he is certainly not alone in struggling with that. So I think what we saw tonight, if we had seen this in that playoff game last January against the Chiefs, maybe he plays out a little differently. But we know that Todd Monken went away from the run. They threw the ball a ton. We saw Lamar with only 18 attempts, 13 completions, the 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Did have the 1 fumble in the second half that perhaps had Ravens fans a little worried, but they finished strong, won by 25 points.
This is the 4th most rushing yards through 4 games with a player on a new team in NFL history. 480 rushing yards for Derrick Henry in these first 4 games. And that comes with, I believe it was a 48-yard performance in week 1. They have found what this offense runs through, and it is so clearly Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. On the flip side of this, you know, some big statements were made into microphones across the sporting world over the last week about these Buffalo Bills, this current version maybe being the best team in the NFL. How does this 60 minutes change the way you regard them right now?
It's a bad 60 minutes of football in late September, and I think you go home, you fly back up to Western New York, and you watch the tape and you learn from it. We talked about the run game being what the Ravens did well. Passing the football is what this Bills team has done well over the first 3 weeks. Among the top in the league at virtually every category. It starts obviously with Josh Allen, but he was under pressure most of the night. I thought the Ravens defenders, the front seven in particular, did a great job of containing Josh in the pocket and forcing him to make tough throws while also having to fend them off. I don't know if there's a better quarterback with a stiff arm than Josh Allen. He had to use it a lot on Sunday night. But they're also at the other end. Josh still hasn't thrown an interception, but Nate Wiggins, the rookie cornerback, should have had two. He dropped two to hit him in the hands. So a bad night offensively. They weren't able to throw the ball, which is what they do well. The run game isn't necessarily what carries them, even though Joe Brady, the OC, provides balance there. But it just wasn't their night. It seemed that to be the case early on. And when you pull Josh Allen with 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, it makes it clear to me that we're going to forget about this and look forward to Week 5.
We have seen Mitch Trubisky back-to-back weeks for vastly different reasons. Let's take a look at your quarterback comparison coming out of this one. And we are going to take a look at Josh Allen, not Mitch's numbers. Josh, 16-29, a $180. 0-0, did have a fumble, put it on the ground in this one. Lamar did what was asked. And sometimes what is asked is to hand it to the man next to you or get into that run game yourself. But 3 total touchdowns, no INTs, the passer rating through the roof with only 18 attempts. Our conversation continuing on the tail end of this game. We talk about slow starters sometimes in other places, Cincinnati being one of them. This is a Ravens team that preseason, the storylines were always there a few years ago with this Harbaugh-led group. But as they do find themselves, it seems to be in all the same places. Running the ball, stopping the run, really being true to that Raven identity. What is the next layer? What is the next step? What is going to be the difference come January to make sure that this group collects a different outcome than past ones?
7 days from now, the next step will be in Cincinnati facing an equally unimpressive Bengals team up through Week 4. They both won today. That's a big deal. And we'll get a measure of both teams because that's what we need to find out of these two teams who we all thought coming into the season were going to be the best in the AFC North. Currently, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's going to be a tenuous hold on that position atop the AFC North. And I think what you have in Baltimore, who struggles at times when they face off against the Bengals, is can their defense get after Joe Burrow, making him uncomfortable? Joe Burrow has yet to throw an interception. And can the offensive line, against an undermanned front seven and dominance of providing Derrick Henry opportunities, Justice Hill opportunities, Lamar Jackson, of course, opportunities. Because if that's the case, and if that's the recipe for success, just lean on Derrick Henry till the wheels fall off and let Lamar throw it 20 times a game. I feel like you can win a lot of football that way.
Yeah, we'll see how it looks next week and in the weeks that follow. But on this week, dominant were those Baltimore Ravens. More to come here on HQ. Straight ahead, we got full highlights from your Sunday nighter. Then we take to the podium. Winners and losers.
Briscoe and Eves, pretty good way to wrap up your weekend if you ask me, but I'm Eves, so I'm biased.
Well, I'm Briscoe, and I'm also biased. I'll take 5 more of those.
Seriously?
How many lead changes? How many times did they go back and forth in that close of a game? Let's go. The Sun take that Game 1 win on the road in Minnesota. They are 2-2 in best-of-5 series when winning the first game. They did, however, lose in 4 games in this same round last season after they beat the Liberty in the opener. This win, of course, puts Connecticut 1 step closer to making the WNBA Finals. They've made 6 straight semis, but they've only made the finals twice in that span. They're 1 and 3 franchises actually to never raise a banner in the WNBA. Leading the way, Alyssa Thomas. You're going to hear from her in a second. She's the distributor. She added 9 assists tonight. That gives her 35 so far this postseason. That is the most assists for the player's first 3 games of a postseason in WNBA history.
Well, what a setup for Alyssa Thomas to join us here on SportsCenter. One of 4 players in double digits for that Sun victory. What was the key to the matchup here, Alyssa, especially from a defensive standpoint? You guys held them to just 8 points in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the defense. They were playing amazing. Fee's been playing amazing in the first round. And for us, it really came down to getting stops and executing on the offensive end down the stretch.
You just heard the stat we just gave, about 35 assists for you through the first 3 games of the playoffs. But how about this? You were 1 assist shy of a triple-double tonight, 17, 10, and 9. How much responsibility are you putting on yourself to miss everything for your team right now?
Yeah, I'm one of the leaders of this team. I've been here my whole career, and nothing changes. We're in the pursuit of a championship, and when you start on the road like this, game 1 is important, especially on the road, and it started with me today.
Well, I got to ask about your last bucket of the game. I mean, defense on both sides was kind of tight there towards the end. Looked like the play was falling apart, and all of a sudden you knocked down a big jumper. Take us through those final seconds of that particular play.
Yeah, I mean, we really didn't have a play. More so, we're kind of chaotic, and I just liked the matchup that I had on me. I just scored the previous possession, and when I saw my opening, I took the shot.
All right, so it's a best-of-5 series. You take game one, but you do it on the road. You've been around basketball for a long time, obviously. Give us an indication, the value from a player's perspective of going on the road to get that W for the first win in the series.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. We always talk about you need to at least get one, and game one is the most important. After game two, you get to go home and have 2 on your home court. So getting one is important. You would like to get 2, but can't always be stingy. So getting that first one is really important for us.
Well, you can't get 2 if you don't get the first one. So game one is in the books on the Sun side. We'll see what happens in game 2. Alyssa Thomas joining us here on SportsCenter. Appreciate the time.
Thank you so much.
From Melissa to Andrea Carter, who's back with us. This game went back and forth more than a dozen times throughout the course of the game, and the Lynx had a chance to tie it there at the end with that 3. What did you see as that play unfolded?
Well, Alyssa Thomas said you can't always be stingy in regards to the series, but let me tell you, this Connecticut Sun defense is always stingy. That is what they are known for. They are the stingiest defense. And on this play, they're stingy, taking away every opportunity from Minnesota. They know they're looking for a 3. Look at DeWanna Bonner. High hand. She switched on to Napheesa Collier to use her length. They deny. They're physical. They're aggressive. They stay with you defensively, and that is exactly what they did. They did it all night long, but to do it on this possession when they absolutely needed it, it was easy for them because that's what they always do. They hang their hat on their defense. They did it all night, but especially in that moment, it won them the game.
It wasn't just that moment. It was also the quarter, too. They held them to just 8 points.
Yes.
When you look at this win as a whole, when you factor in the other 3 quarters as well, what is something else that you take away?
Well, we have to start with who you just interviewed in Alyssa Thomas, because she really is the engine. That has been her nickname for this team. Things start and finish with the play of Alyssa Thomas, and she is a triple-double machine. When you talk about leading the league by a long shot in playoff triple-doubles, Alyssa Thomas gets it done. She can shoot the basketball in that mid-range. She has perfected that little one-arm shot. Mind you, she's playing with 2 torn labrums, so we have to keep that as a factor.
Ouch.
But the way she finds her teammates, her toughness on defense, she can guard multiple positions. With Alyssa Thomas, she is so dynamic, so strong, and so skilled, and she never gets tired. But a second key when it comes to this win, there have been games for Connecticut where Alyssa Thomas almost has a triple-double. DeWanna Bonner struggles from the field, and it's not enough. They still don't get the win. In a game like tonight, with the addition of Marina Mabry, DeWanna Bonner can struggle scoring, and Marina makes up for that scoring. That's why Marina Mabry has been the biggest trade this WNBA season. You almost get a triple-double from Alyssa Thomas. Dejanay Carrington plays well, 13 points, but DeWanna Bonner struggles from the field. You still keep DeWanna on the floor because she gives you so much else defensively and so much with experience. And you've got Marina, 6 threes on a Connecticut Sun team that struggles to find the basket from beyond the arc. She plays with a chip on her shoulder. She's confident when it comes to offensive scoring, and she's a dog on defense. The addition of Marina and her 20 points tonight is definitely what helped Connecticut.
What else did they do? Because obviously we've seen Napheesa Collier be so good in these playoffs, averaging like north of 40 points. Tonight, just shy of 20. What did they do to make that happen?
Well, they're just physical, because the thing about Napheesa Collier is she is so phenomenal, but her teammates also do a great job finding her, right? They get her on the move, they get her when she's cutting, they get her in perfect position, but it's really hard to execute offensively when you're being pushed out, right? So they're pushing Minnesota away from the three-point line. Now it's harder for Minnesota to even run their offense. They're denying the ball reversal, so Minnesota can't get into their action. So you limit Napheesa Collier by actually blowing up all the other positions on the floor, so Minnesota can't execute offensively as a whole.
So what can they do now in game 2 to get the win with another chance at home here?
Yeah, the biggest thing for Minnesota, well, one, they struggled from beyond the arc. I mean, Kayla McBride, Alana Smith, they are very capable three-point shooters. They struggled. Minnesota averaged just under 10 threes a game in the regular season. Minnesota only hit 5 threes in this game. So in a game where you lose by 3, you start to think, oh my goodness, if we just hit one more 3, or even 2 more threes, it would have been a big difference.
You know?
They struggled from beyond the arc, but a lot of that came because they weren't patient offensively. They let Connecticut dictate their offense. So when the defense is dictating the offense, you want it to be the other way around. When you're on offense, you want to beat the defensive rotation. You want the defense to always be catching up to you. That's what Minnesota usually does, but Connecticut's defense has been their kryptonite this season.
All right, so game 2 is on Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern on ESPN2. This was game 2 of this day. What about the other one, Eves? Don't go away because we need you on that.
I'm here.
Well, how about this for a semifinal matchup? A rematch of last year's WNBA Finals. Liberty looking for revenge. Aces on the hunt for a three-peat. And guess who?
Able to be so dominant.
Well, I love the question when you say why, because the one answer that we didn't show, so post-game, Holly Rowe asked Stewie kind of how she was able to get this done or what was motivating her, and she brought up last season. She said she owed those fans something more than what she did last season. You have to remember, in Game 4 of the WNBA Finals against Vegas, it was at home. Breanna Stewart struggled. She was 3 of 17 from the field. She brought that up tonight after she had a 30-piece. It was efficient. They got her on the move. They being the New York Liberty. Well, the Aces got a lot of her as well. But the way she was able to play with the ball on the perimeter, go off of screens, hit mid-range jumpers, she scored from all around the court, and their offense flowed through Breanna Stewart. And she had a chip on her shoulder, and it showed.
Speaking of chips on shoulders, I think Kelsey Plum wears hers very well. Also, you can't ignore Spike. You got to engage him, and no one can do it better than her. Besides all of that and the way that she in some ways carried the Aces, what else stood out to you about the way she performed in this one?
Well, one of the biggest things when it comes to Kelsey Plum is she was decisive and she made really quick decisions. And that's what Kelsey Plum does. She is extremely quick, she is shifty, and she is confident. And what I noticed is New York was loading up defensively. They were sending multiple to the ball. They had a lot of players coming over from the help side, and they were crowding the basketball. And what you have to do when that happens is make quick reads and quick decisions. So as you're watching these highlights, what you don't see is how decisive Kelsey Plum was. And if you're the Las Vegas Aces, all of them need to play that way, because at times they're playing 4-on-5. When they're on offense and New York is on defense, sometimes it's almost like New York has a rover. They just have someone trying to crowd their space. So the Aces have to make quick decisions to score more efficiently the way Kelsey did it, but everybody has to play that way.
So how many times this season have we heard Asia Wilson talk about her teammates and how important her teammates are to her? We have to fit check this Aces team for how they arrived before this game. Every last player to the T showed up wearing, where is it? There we go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
every last one.
This was awesome. And actually, what you don't know, they're supporting 2 of their teammates. So this is actually their teammate, Tiffany Hayes. This is Tiffany Hayes' clothing line. So they're wearing one teammate's clothing line, and they're wearing another teammate's jersey. Just
which is like the epitome of what they're trying to do.
Yes.
And then, of course, Asia showed up doing what she has done so beautifully, just wearing the white T-shirt and the sweats, and like that's her thing, and she's dominant and can make it work. And so please, I have more of that.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Well, the thing is, Asia, when she wears that white tee, it's like she's locked in. She's not worried about anything else. And then, yeah, all her teammates supporting her. That's how they have to be on the basketball court. Asia Wilson, efficient, clean, not worried about anything else. And then all her teammates there to provide support. They're going to need that in Game 2.
Game 2.